Hey all, Scott here, and step right up to the birth off, where we fuse illegal gambling and pregnant women. Which pregnant woman will squirt one out first? Place your bets and let's find out.
I have been ordered to issue an apology by the court of law. In no instance should childbirth be linked to illegal gambling. And if there's one thing that makes childbirth a drag, it's illegal gambling. Please forgive me and don't set up a childbirth off of your own. I must now stay at least 50 feet away from any pregnant woman and must complete 14 minutes of community service by informing the public on a much less problematic topic. Game console births and the titles that come with them. Shit, that's it? You can't have a game console without some games, so obviously you gotta launch with them. However, that's easier said than done. It's definitely tricky dicky to land on a date where you must have hardware and a football field's worth of software ready at the same time. So usually one or the other or both are totally half-baked. So let's gander at console launches in days of yore and see how gross, lame, or surprisingly good they were. All of these will be North American launch titles and physical releases only. I'll be ranking them based on how good I think the launches were, taking into consideration the quantity, quality, and sheer variety of games available. And yes, before you ask, I'll address the rumor. I'll be using my patented 6-point scale and rate them as a whole. The Nintendo Entertainment System launched on October 18th, 1985 here in North America alongside 17 games in these slick black boxes. It seemed that Nintendo strived to offer variety at the launch of the NES with everything from sports games, arcade games, action games, light gun games, the whole 9 yards. Of course, nowadays I'd say a solid majority of these games haven't held up too awful well. I mean, I swear I've heard during Pearl Harbor soldiers could hear the term 10-yard fight ringing in their ears. Some of these aren't too great, but with gems like Duck Hunt, Excite Bike, Kung Fu, and of course Super Mario Bros., it's hard not to appreciate the launch titles of the NES and admit that back in '85, this was a pretty solid lineup. The Sega Master System launched in September of 1986 with 2 games. See you later. The Game Boy launched on August 11th, 1989, and we'll take the NES launch titles and cut them in half. And then cut them in half again. The Game Boy launched with some very basic sports titles: Alleyway, an Arkanoid clone, Super Mario Land, a jank yet charming portable Mario game, and Tetris. Need I say more? Disregarding any other titles that launched alongside it, you had Tetris and Super Mario Land, the only 2 titles the Game Boy had to launch with, so the launch was decent enough. I think it was pretty solid, but could have used a few more titles and recognizable franchises. The Sega Genesis launched on August 14th, 1989, and this is definitely an improvement compared to the Master System. This lineup really felt like they were trying to highlight how the Genesis can perfectly recreate an arcade experience with titles like Altered Beast and a sequel to the arcade title Space Harrier. You also have Tommy Lasorda Baseball if that's your thing. Overall, not a mind-blowing launch, but one with a few quality titles at the time and enough variety to get a pass. The Game Gear launched in April of 1991 with this sack of games, and not doing much for me. All of these are ports of Sega Master System games, which makes sense because the Game Gear is fundamentally just a repackaged Master System, but still, you look at the Game Boy and it had Tetris, which hadn't released on the NES yet, and Super Mario Land, major system-selling exclusives. The Game Gear didn't have that big exclusive title really, so while this was a decent lineup of games, it honestly isn't the most compelling. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System launched on August 23rd, 1991, and crack open your quality containers and make room for 5 titles, because I gotta say, with the NES's overabundance of games at launch, the SNES definitely took strides to focus on quality and variety. 5 great games, all completely different genres. If I could ask for more, I'd say a few more titles would do it, but overall, this is a superb launch lineup. The Sega Saturn launched on May 11th, 1995, and whoa Nelly, what a botched launch. Sega was supposed to launch the Saturn in the holiday of 1995, but instead they decided to shoot the launch up to May of that year, and yikes, games like Daytona USA and Virtua Fighter simply weren't ready for launch, and Clockwork Knight, Worldwide Soccer, and Pebble Beach Golf Links ain't nothing special, that's for sure. The standout title of the bunch is definitely Panzer Dragoon, but even that couldn't save how botched this launch was. It basically killed Sega. The PlayStation launched on September 9th, 1995, and my oh my, some solid variety and quality. Ridge Racer, Rayman, Battle Arena Toshinden, The Raiden Project, NBA Jam, the list goes on. Nothing crazy, but definitely some decent stuff. And you're gonna have to excuse me on this one. I was never a PS1 guy at all, but from what I know, this was pretty solid. The Nintendo 64 launched on September 29th, 1996, and this is embarrassing. Nintendo home console launches just got smaller and smaller until blam, 2-title launch event, have at it. Mario 64 and Pilot Wing 64. Sure, one is the most revolutionary games of all time and the other is Mario 64, but my god, only 2 titles? Not a lot of variety here at all. If these 2 titles weren't as quality as they were, we'd have a bit of an issue here. Alas, these are 2 very decent games to launch with, and in many folks' cases, Mario 64 is the only one they ever needed. But you have to admit, the launch could have had a few more titles. The Game Boy Color launched on November 19th, 1998, and cough cough, this is anemic. Tetris DX, it's Tetris, but in color, hooray, what a revolution. Game & Watch Gallery 2, it's a bunch of LCD Game & Watch games remade on the Game Boy Color. Egads, a revolution is upon us. Pocket Bomberman, a new Bomberman game, eh? Does somebody smell a revolution? Centipede. It's fucking Centipede. The Game Boy Color has got to have one of the lamest launches ever. Yeah, these are all solid games, but these in no way give you a reason to pick up a Game Boy Color if you already have a Game Boy. Plus, these are all games that are like way past old or very, very similar to older games. Why no new titles? The Sega Dreamcast launched on September 9th, 1999, and this is how you do a console launch. Sega learned their lesson from the Saturn and crammed as much quality as they could into the Dreamcast's big day. So much variety, loads of games, and so many quality titles. Sonic Adventure, Sonic's big foray into 3D, was a smash success and great game at the time. Soul Calibur, an amazing 3D fighting game. Power Stone, a spectacular multiplayer party fighter. House of the Dead 2 and Hydro Thunder, great arcade games. The Dreamcast had a pretty banging launch to say the least. The PlayStation 2 launched on October 26, 2000, and similar to the PlayStation 1, the PS2 saw a multitude of games with a load of variety within the genres. Nothing absolutely insane or anything considered system sellers, but if you were to buy the console at launch, there was enough here to keep you occupied. The Game Boy Advance launched on June 11th, 2001, and you know what? Not bad. Games like Castlevania Circle of the Moon, Choo Choo Rocket, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, Konami Crazy Racers, and Super Mario Advance? Excellent way to start off the handheld. There's loads of high quality stuff here, lots of variety, and the only thing I'm a little miffed about is the lack of original Nintendo games. We have 2 being Mario Advance and F-Zero Maximum Velocity, and Mario Advance was simply a remake of Super Mario Bros. 2, even though it was still really solid. I think at least one more game would have made this an even better launch. The Xbox launched on November 15th, 2001, and Microsoft did a really solid job on their first outing in the console market. Halo, Oddworld, Munch's Odyssey, Project Gotham Racing, Fusion Frenzy, all at launch, that's pretty solid, including stuff like Cell Damage, Dead or Alive 3, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X. It's a bit oversaturated with sports games, but for a first console, this was a pretty solid launch. The GameCube launched on November 18th, 2001, and man, this was a tough one. Was it pretty good or relatively meh-worthy? Titles like Luigi's Mansion and Wave Race Blue Storm are cool to have, but not everybody's cup of tea. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 looks amazing for a GameCube game and is pretty beloved, and Super Monkey Ball is an all-around stellar title, with Crazy Taxi and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 there as well. But really, that's about it. Not a ton of stuff, but a fair amount of quality. Also, Smash Bros. Melee and Pikmin launched on the system like a week later, so not bad, I'd even say pretty good. The Nintendo DS launched on November 21st, 2004, and oh god, this is pretty bad, I gotta say. The only thing here that's really all that noteworthy is Super Mario 64 DS, and even then, that game was only made as a way to show everybody that the DS can play 3D games. The game is fine, it works, but it's not the most comfortable way to play Super Mario 64. I have to admit, it was impressive at the time, though. We also had Metroid Prime Hunter's First Hunt! A demo of Metroid Prime Hunters! And who could forget Ping Pals and Feel the Magic This Blows? The PlayStation Portable launched on March 24th, 2005, and similar to the PS1, you're gonna have to excuse me, I've never gotten too acquainted with the PSP even though I'd love to. But from what I can tell, the PSP had a pretty decent launch. We have some solid franchises like Ape Escape, Twisted Metal, with an appearance from Wipeout, with kinda ho-hum third-party support in my opinion.
The Xbox 360 launched on November 22nd, 2005 with a lineup not as solid as the original Xbox's. The original Xbox launched with Halo, the Xbox 360 launched with Perfect Dark Zero, a less than stellar successor to the Nintendo 64 game. I mean, you have stuff like Project Gotham Racing 3, Cameo, Condemned, and Ridge Racer 6, but overall there really wasn't much of a heavy hitter, that one game you need the system for. I guess Microsoft thought that would have been Perfect Dark Zero, but that just refused to happen. The PlayStation 3 launched on November 17th, 2006, and if you don't remember, the PS3 had a bit of a rough start, and good god, it's easy to see why. There's nothing here. Well, we have Ridge Racer and Resistance? Genji Days of the Blade, anybody? Resistance is definitely the closest to being a system seller, but even then, it's just alright. The Wii launched on November 19th, 2006, and wow, Zelda at launch? The return of the Excite series of games with Excite Truck? Wii Sports? What a lineup! Oh, and there's like 20 other games that are garbage. That's a bit on the harsh side of things. Trauma Center Second Opinion is cool. The third-party offerings at the Wii's launch were pretty bad to say the least. A bunch of licensed games, multiplats that really didn't know how to use the Wii remote. If it weren't for the Nintendo games, I'd be singing a different tune. I mean, Nintendo delivered what many can't at a launch. Must-have system sellers in the form of Zelda Twilight Princess and Wii Sports. I love this launch, but simply due to the sheer amount of garbage here, I'm going straight down the middle with the rating. The Nintendo 3DS launched on March 27th, 2011, and no thank you. The 3DS launch was notoriously pretty bad. Nothing here had much substance. Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition was definitely the most talked about game at launch. I mean, it was Super Street Fighter 4 on a handheld, that was pretty impressive. Rayman 3D was a gross port of Rayman 2 from 1999. Asphalt 3D was a port of a free mobile game for $40. Everything else was just kinda there, nothing absolutely horrible, nothing great. Nintendo's offerings were just as sparse. Nintendogs plus cats really was everything the title made it out to be. Nintendogs with cats. Steel Diver was a slow-paced submarine sim, which was really an either you like it or you hate it type of game. And Pilot Wings Resort was the one I was most into, but like the rest of the titles, there just wasn't enough to it. This launch had a load of quantity, but nothing to keep you coming back to the system. These all felt like filler titles. The PlayStation Vita launched on February 22nd, 2012, and guys, I gotta be honest. Even though the PS Vita flopped hard, it had a great launch lineup. Sony really hit it out of the park with their exclusives. Hot Shots Golf, Wipeout, Mod Nation Racers, Uncharted, and the third-party offerings weren't too bad either. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Blaze Blue, Rayman Origin, Touch My Katamari. Now, the problem is many people would rather play these types of games on a TV, and these games were already basically watered-down console games, so the Vita struggled throughout its life. But I gotta say, the launch of this system was better than most Sony consoles. The Wii U launched on November 18th, 2012, and, well, that's an improvement from the 3DS. There is a fair amount of variety in the Wii U's launch. The problem was the majority of these games were either too old for people to really care at that point, or had better versions elsewhere. Nintendo supplied games like Nintendo Land, a really fun minigame compilation that was sadly nowhere near as effective as Wii Sports was, and New Super Mario Bros. U, a solid game, but way too similar to New Super Mario Bros. Wii on the previous console. Definitely not helping out in terms of differentiating the Wii U from the Wii. They also published a few titles, being Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge, and Sing Party, but overall, the launch wasn't exciting at all, really. And the games that originally did excite people, like the exclusive title Zombie U, ended up garnering a mixed reception. PlayStation 4 launched on November 15th, 2013, and oh man, I'm not a fan of this lineup. Do you like games that were also available on the previous generation of PlayStation, also available on the Xbox One, and exclusives that are trash? Well, you already have a PS4, so what's the point in selling one to you? The Xbox One launched on November 22nd, 2013 with an alright string of games. Better than the PS4's offering, as I gotta say. The Xbox One actually had some exclusives like Dead Rising 3, and that's about it, but at least that's better than all of the PS4 launch exclusives combined. Rise Son of Rome was seen as a bit of a disappointment for loads of QuickTime events, and Zoo Tycoon made an appearance, which is pretty solid. Better than the PS4's launch, but still far from amazing. The Nintendo Switch launched on March 3rd, 2017, and this one is a bit hard to rate. I mean, only 5 retail games were available at launch, and they either appeal to Nintendo fans or casual gamers. Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game that many will consistently wag their finger at and say, oh boy, that game, but it was also available on Wii U that exact day. Didn't really matter much because who owns a Wii U, but it definitely took away a bit from the feeling of having Zelda at launch. At least with Zelda Twilight Princess on the Wii, that was exclusive to the Wii for a few weeks before making its way to the GameCube. Super Bomberman R is a Bomberman game. game, there's no doubt about that. 1-2 Switch is pretty fun for the first hour you play, and for God's sakes, never again. And Just Dance and Skylanders, the pinnacle of any system launch. Downloadable titles fared a bit better with games like Snipper Clips and Fast RMX. Overall, without Zelda, I'd definitely be having traumatic flashbacks about this launch, but a new Zelda title definitely goes a long way and made the Switch's launch pretty great. However, gotta dock points for the lack of quantity. So overall, most launches kind of blow, but what really matters is a steady stream of games afterwards. The launch shouldn't be the be-all end-all of a system, it's just warming up at that point. However, launches do matter because first impressions matter. It sets a standard, it shows you what you've gotten yourself into. The launch of a system is only the beginning, and hopefully means it can only get better from there. But if console manufacturers actually want people to buy their systems in drove at launch, well, they better release it with some pretty stellar games.
Well, that was definitely community service and 14 minutes of it. Anyways, I have places to do and things to be. I think I'm gonna go heckle some dogs at the pound. It's gonna be hilarious. When will I ever learn?
Hey y'all, Scott here. Spoiler alert! I always feared being spoiled on what's inside the PlayStation Vita box, but now I'm finally willing to show it off to everyone while keeping my experiences pure. I don't want to see it. Don't meet your heroes. Alright, looks like we have... Oh my god, little deviants. What's better than getting a brand new video game console? Using it. Name a more exhilarating pleasure. You open up your brand new Nintendo 64, rip it out of the box, plug it into the TV, pop in the gate. My crotch hurts. Doesn't it just make sense to get some kind of thing to do with your game system when you buy it? I mean, sure, these days our consoles can connect to the internet and do all kinds of things out the box, but that doesn't mean we should be deprived of a surprise. Pack-in games. Now, I consider these to be a different beast from your average everyday console bundle. Oh wow, big man, too good to call this a pack-in. Well, f*** a guy with an opinion, I guess. Nah, I'm talking games that were packed in as a standard with the console. Titles synonymous with coming alongside the system. You can't imagine that game without the console, you can't imagine that console without the game. Easiest example, Wii Sports. Alright, everybody knows that as the Wii's pack-in. For a while, at least here in North America, you couldn't buy it separately. It was only available alongside the Wii console for the longest time. That is a pack-in and shows just how important of a job it is to be one. It has the duty to sell you on the console after you buy it. It's supposed to represent everything that system is meant to be, take advantage of its unique capabilities, get you excited for the future, and they're almost always considered throwaway freebies. They aren't given the respect they deserve. You just try to do what they do. Dude, I'm pissed. Pack-in titles go in and out of fashion. I'm sure most of the time they aren't included to keep costs down, but back when consoles couldn't connect to the internet, just what were you expecting us to do with these systems? The Nintendo 64 launched with only 2 games available for it, and neither one were in the box. You had to buy them separately. The system doesn't even do anything when you turn it on. Hell, I would at least appreciate a screen telling me what to do next. That just goes to show how lucrative the pack-in was. These consoles were paperweights without a game to play on them, and these games helped you do something with the systems until you finally got a good game. In my opinion, pack-in titles have a lot to live up to. They're your first impression of a video game console. If it's bad, that's almost worse than if you meet a newborn baby for the first time, just trying to have a conversation and it's slimy and goopy and screaming. I'm done trying. There's an art to the pack-in. It's gotta be a good introduction to a new generation while also being a good game on its own. A system seller, a one-of-a-kind experience. Well, let's just see how well these pack-ins did their job. We'll hop around throughout history from pack-in to pack-in and see how they rank as pack-ins on the historically definitive pack-in review scale. There was only ever one, and it was from 1934. They were confused too. This was before stars were invented. Following the success of the original Wii, Nintendo knew they had to bring the big guns with the Wii U. The Wii had Wii Sports bundled in, a perfect representation of what made that console unique that was immediately understandable and enjoyed by the masses. Without Wii Sports, the Wii would have gone nowhere, or at least somewhere not nearly as far as it went. So Nintendo wanted to try this thing where they made a similar bundled-in experience for the system's successor. It's called f***ing up. Nintendo Land, the Wii U's pack-in title. Kinda. See, the system launched with 2 versions, the basic set with just the bare necessities for 300 bones, and the deluxe set with a few extra accessories and the Nintendo Land game for 350 bones. I would say you'd be a fool not to buy the Wii U deluxe set, but I can't because you'd be buying a Wii U. But hey, Nintendo Land was sold separately, retailing for $60 whole, so being bundled in with a system for $50 more, plus a slew of random garbage included alongside it, come on, that's a steal. But monetary value is the least of our concern right now. How does Nintendo Land Land hold up as a pack-in? Well, the entire game design philosophy behind this project is to be a pack-in. That's literally its destiny. It just doesn't feel right as a standalone release. The game is laser focused on showing you as many uses of the Wii U's fancy new controller as possible. And Nintendo Land does so through the visual treat known as a virtual Nintendo theme park.
She's gone.
Yeah, that decision killed some of the mass market appeal the Wii U could have had. I mean, to people like us, we think there's no way in hell you could go wrong with a minigame based on the mysterious Murasame Castle from the Famicom Disk System, but for some reason, Dad disagrees. I mean, Wii Sports had bowling, Nintendo Land had Octopus Dance. This game is incredibly fun and obscenely well made, and while I think many non-gamers can get a kick out of some of the minigames at play here, the barrier for entry is far too large. You think I can convince Grandma to play a minigame based on Pikmin? Well, I can't. She's dead. You don't have to be a Nintendo fan to enjoy these games, but the theming makes it look like this is just for pre-existing Nintendo fans. But with the gameplay, it's a lot of fun and does a great job using the controller. Though it doesn't do a great job validating the controller. Each year after Nintendo Land launched, people would still have discussions about the Wii U not having its Wii Sports moment yet, a game that made you go, so that's why this exists. People didn't see Nintendo Land as that game, which probably frustrated Nintendo considering that's all Nintendo Land was designed to be. I mean, it showed how asymmetrical multiplayer works. The players on the TV see something different compared to the players on the gamepad. It also had some single player only games, many of which I'm not sure understood the assignment. Balloon Trip Breeze, based on Balloon Fight from the NES. Here we use the touchscreen to push our character around via the wind to avoid obstacles. We see everything on the TV and a zoomed in shot on the gamepad. Wow, I need a Wii U! Some of these games just feel like filler. Most of them are still good fun, but fun in the way online Flash games were fun. Donkey Kong's Crash Course has a similar format to the previous game. The screen is zoomed out on the TV, zoomed in on the gamepad, and it's a really addictive physics-based puzzle platformer where you try to get through the obstacle course without breaking your cart. But these two games, while good, aren't necessary on Wii U. They don't need the gamepad. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean Nintendo Land is a poor pack-in title. It's actually a great one. There's so much content here. 12 minigames with multiple levels and forms of replay value, collectibles to decorate your park with, spectacular graphics and music, fun and inventive uses of the Wii U's technology. If this was the only game you had, it could keep you busy for a while. But it's just not at the same level as Wii Sports when it comes to being a true system seller and showcase for why you need this controller setup, which is a problem considering that's what Nintendo made Nintendo Land to do. So while it's a really fun game with cool uses of its console's tech, it didn't succeed at its goal as a pack-in title. This was positioned as the Wii U's Wii Sports, and it failed to capture that same audience and magic. A lot of these mini games with their controller implementation feel far more forced than anything in Wii Sports ever did. A really fun game, great to get this with the console, but didn't accomplish what it wanted to do as a pack-in. Packed in with the Super Nintendo, we got Super Mario World, one of the greatest games of all time. How's Scott gonna bitch about this one?
I found a way.
I love Super Mario World, and getting this for free with your Super Nintendo was a steal! I mean, this is often considered one of the best SNES games, and it was just a giveaway, no big deal. So, this is an outstanding value being bundled in. Though, as a console showcase, it's a bit more subtle. It's not the flashiest game, and because of that, it was easy for critics and players at the time to compare it to competing games on competing hardware, like Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. Doing so, Mario World doesn't look all too revolutionary. Not saying it wasn't, rather, Sonic was this brand new thing we've never seen before, while Mario World was a pretty logical follow-up to what we got on the NES. As a system showcase, it's not at all in your face. In fact, I'd say the games that launched with the Super Nintendo sold separately did a far better job of that. But what Super Mario World had that those games didn't was this humongous map of dozens upon dozens of levels with countless secrets to discover, endless replay value. The 40th time you play Super Mario World is just about as fun as the first. Add that all together and you have a pack-in title that, while lacking a bit of the innovation games like Super Mario Bros. 1 or even Wii Sports brought to the table, made up for it and then some when it came to value and fun. Better yet, it didn't include Octopus Dance. It's like an abacus.
This counts.
Astro's Playroom was considered the pack-in title for the PlayStation 5. So is Settings. Pre-installed on PlayStation 5 consoles. Alright, fine enough. I'll let this one slide because Astro's Playroom, damn it, I'm getting emotional. This is one of the most joy-filled, simple, fun experiences I've ever had on a PlayStation console, focusing on showing exactly what the new DualSense controller can do. It's a basic 3D platformer at the end of the day, but it just feels so good and polished to oblivion. Plus, it's chock full of hundreds of PlayStation references, games, hardware. Help, the final boss is a PlayStation 1 tech demo. Well, actually, this may have some Nintendo Land syndrome.
Oh, God!
At least in the sense that so much of what makes this a treat is the deep cut references, because at its core, it's a smooth as butter platformer with really cool controller gimmicks here and there, but you finish it in about an hour and nothing is all too mind-blowing. The uses for the controller are all pretty damn superfluous if I'm being honest, and they're mainly just used to show off in really exaggerated ways how some of these features could be used in games. Climbing a rock wall? Well, the triggers can vibrate and increase resistance to really feel like your character is grabbing onto something. If Astro's Playroom wasn't on the PS5 and didn't use a controller capable of such things, I think we would live.
Think.
PlayStation consoles historically haven't had pack-ins all too often, so I think it's impossible to complain about this.
Think!
You know what? I'll say it. I think being a pack-in made this game worse. Because it had to be free, included with the system, it's obviously quite short, and while I think it's not fair to call it just a tech demo, it's not a full-fledged game either, though if you want to collect every single thing in the game, that could keep you busy for a bit. But after I beat it, I just wanted more and thought to myself, what if this wasn't a pack-in? What if it could have just been its own game? Imagine the possibilities! Instead, it's just a really fun freebie on the PlayStation 5 that, while doing a good job showing off the controller's tech, is more concerned with being a solid little 3D platformer and not much else. When the Nintendo Switch launched, one game had such high levels of pack-in energy that everybody was befuddled when it was sold separately instead.
Where the is it?
But that would be in a perfect world, and we live in reality. 1-2 Switch was often suggested to work better as a pack-in title for Nintendo Switch. It was only ever sold separately aside from being a freebie in some Mario Tennis Aces bundle. I want to talk about this one, not as a pack-in game because it wasn't one, rather everybody's opinion that it should have been a pack-in game. You want this forced onto you? 1-2 Switch was an attempt by Nintendo at a new type of casual game, utilizing the Nintendo Switch hardware at launch. 2 players facing off against each other across the 28 included mini-games. Most of them have very little happening on the screen. Instead, you want to focus on the other person, listen for audio or feedback from the Joy-Con controllers. It's an incredibly creative idea. Nintendo Land may have been a great game, but it felt like Nintendo developed it with the intention of it being Wii Sports for the Wii U. 1-2 Switch feels more like some developers had a unique idea and wanted to create an experimental multiplayer game, which I can get behind. With a gun! 28 mini-games. Yeah, sounds great. Did I mention 28 of those mini-games are worthless? 1-2 Switch fails as both a video game and a console showcase. These mini-games are over within a minute, and none of them have even a modicum of depth. I guess the replay value comes from the wacky fun you'll have in real life. The game will put you and your friends in such interesting scenarios. I don't need this game to act like a gorilla. As a console showcase, the only things people ever mention is the eating contest minigame, where you use the IR camera on the Joy-Con to gorge, and the ball count minigame, moving the Joy-Con around and feeling the HD rumble replicate the feel of balls rolling around in there. That's it. That's all 1-2 Switch does to show something the Switch can do. Those games feel somewhat out of place in the package. If more of them were like that, I think it would have fit better as a pack-in. I will admit the game can be fun when played with the right people, and nobody in the group has ever played it before. And it's right when the Switch launched, so everybody's more excited for the console. And dumb, everybody's fucking dumb. But after the first time playing, there's nothing. So, yes, retailing for $50 by itself, that's a dick move. Being your first Nintendo Switch experience coming bundled in with the system is that much better. Would you rather be shot for free or for $50? This being a pack-in would have given me such a bad taste for the console that I think while it was grossly overpriced, Nintendo made the right call selling it separately. The original Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt combination cartridge. The most iconic pack-in title of them all. It's like everybody knows what they get with an NES. Whiplash. Yeah, Super Mario Bros. Wasn't originally the pack-in for the Nintendo Entertainment System. No. The original SKU contained 2 separate cartridges for Duck Hunt and Gyromite. Yeah, Gyromite. It uses the Rob the Robot accessory that originally came with the NES. Because something had to. Rob was included alongside the Zapper gun to make the NES seem more like the ultimate toy rather than a video game system during a time in which retailers didn't trust that video games could sell. So the original pack-in games for the NES weren't even games you just sat down and played a controller with. They were both games that relied heavily on or required accessories. Well, how is this gonna prepare me for the rest of the console? A pack-in game is supposed to give me an idea of how this generation is gonna go, and how many of the 700 plus NES games released require the Zapper? Well, at least we have Rob included. God damn it. Shortly into the NES's life, Nintendo introduced the new standard pack-in title, Super Mario Bros., while also keeping Duck Hunt in some bundles, with the combo cartridge being the one everybody had. This was the pack-in during the most popular era of the console. Considering how Super Mario Bros. Changed the video game industry and is still played endlessly to this day, shows how this was the pack-in. I'm not sure if anything will ever top it. Not only did it revolutionize gaming, it was the perfect teaching tool for customers to learn this system. What do these buttons do? How do most games work? What you can expect from this console. And if you were lucky, you got Duck Hunt too, and thank God, because I needed a healthier coping mechanism. I think Duck Hunt was a great inclusion because it's something anybody can understand, and it demos great. Look, I'm shooting the ducks! However, it's a very short and simple experience, whereas Super Mario Bros. Has secrets, power-ups, 32 levels. It was an unbelievably deep game for 1985, and paired excellently with the more gimmicky and shallow Duck Hunt. Welcome to video games. This game right here was one of the de facto pack-ins for the Atari 2600. Combat. Its premise couldn't be simpler. Two people take control of one tank each, or other vehicles in other modes, and see who wins. It's a very simple game. So simple you can only play with 2 players. The other tank isn't controlled by the computer when you're playing alone. Yeah, that kind of forces your pack-in game to only appeal to customers with 4 hands or a sister. Listen, combat can be fun, but I think bundling a multiplayer-only game with your console doesn't make much sense. I think packing in Space Invaders, Asteroids, Breakout, I don't know, any of those would have worked. They're games you can play alone or have fun passing off to somebody else in the house. Or they could have waited and spent more time on combat, figuring out how to make it a single-player game in addition to a multiplayer game, and boom, we would have been golden. But no, instead they've led me to stay up at night thinking, gosh, I wish Atari packed in a different game with the Atari 2600 in 1977. Why do I wish that? What? The Nintendo 3DS had no pack-in games, says the Outcast. The 3DS may not have had a traditional game that came in box with the handheld, but that didn't mean it didn't come with something. The pre-installed software on the device. Yeah, the 3DS basically came with 3 games, more if you want to count Activity Log. How do I win? First up is Face Raiders. First up is Street Pass Mii Plaza. So the 3DS did this wild thing where if you had it on you in sleep mode while walking around, if you passed another 3DS user, you'd see their Mii pop up via Street Pass. Hey Dad, I'm putting myself out there. With all these Miis you come across, you can then play Street Pass games like Puzzle Swap and Find Me, with others eventually being offered as paid downloadable content. I never experienced much of Street Pass, mainly because I was ashamed to be a Nintendo fan when the 3DS was new. I was 14 years old and wanted to put up a facade. I don't like Nintendo, I like having a big stinky crotch. So this thing just kind of rotted in my sock drawer until that fateful moment whenever I wanted to sin. But I did play more of the other bits of pre-installed software, AR games and Face Raiders. AR games utilize the outer cameras of the 3DS and the collection of cards that every system came with. No matter how many revisions of the 3DS released, no matter how much they cut costs on some models, they were damn sure to include AR cards. I'm gonna tune into the news one day and they're gonna announce the last tree on Earth has just died. How could we have prevented this? This was always a cute little distraction, but nothing more really. Same can be said for Face Raiders. These both feel more like fun tech demos using the 3DS cameras rather than full games included for free. But I'm not one to complain about these being included. I'm one to complain about how I accidentally hover over these icons more than actually play them. The Nintendo DS introduced a whole new type of people to gaming. People, those who never picked up a controller before, were suddenly using the DS every day, playing games like Brain Age, Nintendogs, Art Academy, and even dipping their toes into more core titles like New Super Mario Bros. With that in mind, what was the Nintendo DS pack-in title at launch? Not even the full game. Metroid Prime Hunters First Hunt, a demo cartridge for the upcoming Metroid Prime Hunters, which launched 2 years after the DS released. My God! I mean, thanks for the demo, but by the time the game came out, I already forgot this came with the system. Bundling a demo for Prime Hunters shows how the DS wasn't always meant to be a casual gaming device for everybody. In those early years, it's pretty apparent Nintendo wanted to push the DS as a bit of a powerhouse, and this game helped showcase that. Plus, there's enough to do. There's a really basic multiplayer mode, 3 single-player missions, and a trailer to watch. You know, if I bought a DS at launch, I think this was a pretty cool bonus. I'd also have been 7. What better game to get with your Sega Genesis than Adjusted Varmint? Yeah, when the Sega Genesis first released, it didn't have a lot of the titles people recognize it for, like Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3. What Sega was trying to push with the Genesis in its early years was how comparable it was to arcades. Sure, the NES could play older arcade games like Pac-Man, alright, but when it got more contemporary arcade hits at the time, like Strider, Narc, and Ninja Turtles, how is this surprising to anybody?
Man, this pumpkin can't play football.
The Sega Genesis was advertised to have arcade quality versions of games, so what better way to show that off than with Altered Beast?
Implying this was the best case scenario?
Altered Beast was never great. You look at reviews from back in the day, critics were still mixed on it. It's just so slow, lame, and clunky. The only reason I ever play it to this day is due to how recognizable it is. Like, that's a face I can remember, but it's never because I actively want to play it. I find Altered Beast to be incredibly mediocre, and the only reason it was bundled in with the Genesis was because it was an arcade game on the system, it was made by Sega, which means they didn't need to do any fancy licensing deals, and, I mean, it was badass! I don't want to play Nintendo, I'm grown up now, I want to play... I hope that's his leg. But Altered Beast didn't last as the Genesis pack-in for long, eventually being replaced by Sonic the Hedgehog. Now this is more like it. Sonic 1 showcased the Genesis's power and capabilities of arcade quality visuals without being an arcade game. This was made just for the Sega Genesis, while also having far more mass appeal than Altered Beast, being a platformer featuring one of the greatest character designs of all time. See, Altered Beast may have been badass, but was too gritty and hardcore. Sonic had this great balance where he was colorful and cute, but had attitude and was cool as hell. You appeal to everybody with him, and coupled with the speed of the game's first level, Sonic the Hedgehog was the ideal pack-in. A game you can easily compare to competing games on competing hardware and immediately point out the differences in what made the game special. Gun to your head, do that with Altered Beast.
If you want to kill me, just do it.
Fucking duh. Let's be fair, looking at it critically as a game, Wii Sports is nothing more than a tech demo with some garnish. There's not a ton here, but what is here couldn't be utilized any smarter. You got 5 sports included, and the ones they picked were ingenious. They're all sports we know. Who needs a refresher on the rules? Baseball, tennis, bowling, golf, and boxing were the ideal choices as everybody knows them and knows how to mimic them. That's key here, as the Wii was all about the motion controls of the Wii Remote. How do you showcase the possibilities? Create a collection of 5 sports everybody knows and control them by lying to yourself. Oh yeah, I'm playing baseball. Wii Sports was very simple. There's no single player, online multiplayer, or leaderboards. It has painfully basic graphics, but all of these things that seem to be negatives helped it succeed at the end of the day. These sports are timeless in real life, and they're so well executed in this game. No tutorial necessary, you just hop right in and play, which means adding countless other things around them would just complicate the experience. Sure, a single player campaign would be nice, but Wii Sports doesn't need it. Golf and bowling will be popular in real life until the end of time, and they're represented so well in this game that, honestly, the same applies to them here. Wii Sports will always be pure and casual fun. It does a perfect job validating the Wii, and the Wii does a great job validating it. Because let's be honest, if this was a pack-in for the Xbox 360, well, I'd feel better about my physicality. I'd do anything in Wii Sports, I'm pulling a muscle. This is what sold the Wii, and it may have done it a little too well. So many people were eating up Wii Sports, they forgot other games released for the Wii. Worse games. Honestly, Wii Sports may have set the precedent for Wii software going forward, which was both good and bad. This software library is chock full of low effort, low quality garbage, and it's one of those things where you feel that some people looked at Wii Sports and didn't think it went much deeper than that. Oh, people want motion control games with bad graphics and no content. And it's like, Yeah, Wii Sports wasn't a looker, but it felt more like a stylistic choice rather than due to incompetency or laziness, though that's easier to say now compared to in 2006 when this launched. And it was light on content because it had a damn reason to be. It was bundled in with the system. If it wasn't, then I'd have something to say. F this game. Tetris, the classic go-to original Game Boy game, and it was included for free. This turned the Game Boy from a kid's toy into something everybody could enjoy, and while Tetris was originally available on personal computers, the handheld format of the Game Boy, alongside its affordable price point and everlasting battery life, led to this being a match made in heaven. A game that works perfectly within the Game Boy's limitations, one of the only games you could see on it. With a screen like this, Tetris works. I wouldn't say perfectly, but it works. For either quick pick-up and play sessions or long-lasting car rides, Tetris was the game to pop in. Sure, Super Mario Land would have been a solid pack-in choice, but Tetris ended up having so much more wide appeal. When Microsoft was creating their own motion controller to go head-to-head with the Wii, they knew a pack-in title was necessary to really seal the deal and show the world how Kinect for the Xbox 360 mattered. It didn't. Kinect Adventures! Everybody congratulate the best-selling Xbox 360 game of all time because it must have earned that. Listen, Kinect Adventures isn't abhorrent, it's just really half-assed. Like, it doesn't feel like a well-designed game to validate the Kinect, it just feels like Microsoft knew they had to include a pack-in and whip this up in a few months. This is a game that was designed from the start to be free, not a game you'd willingly buy if it wasn't included in the box. With that being said, there are some fun little mini games in the package that work alright, but it's just not enough, man. I don't think anybody really bought a Kinect for what this game was offering. Similar to the Kinect, Sony was creating their own motion controller peripheral for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation Move, and decided they needed to include a pack-in as well, that being Sports Champions. Wow, table tennis, volleyball, gladiator duel, disc golf, bocce, and archery. This says to me, let's do a sports compilation, but make damn sure we don't do any sports from Wii Sports. Because in a world where Wii Sports doesn't exist, there is no way in hell they'd include bocce ball. Sports Champions doesn't do anything that a million other Wii games haven't already done by this point. The controls work well, but they also did in Wii Sports Resort, so who the hell cares? Well, have you ever played Gladiator Duel? This is genuinely one of the best things the PlayStation Move has ever been responsible for. Grab 2 moves per person with one hand holding the shield, the other the weapon, and you have one of the greatest feeling motion-controlled multiplayer combat games ever created. It is good. The other sports are a fine distraction, but this is good enough to make this package overall a decent pack-in title. When the Wii Mini launched, cutting straight to the punchline on that one, for only 100 bones here in the US during the holiday of 2013, I thought that would have been it. You get a Wii system, remote, nunchuck, and all the necessary cables for a clean 100. Makes sense? But they just had to include Mario Kart Wii, which sold for $40 by itself for free. What a deal! How could you be pissed off at this thing? But the AV cables are included. Regardless, Mario Kart Wii is such a powerful pack-in with so much content. Though it is a strange one. I mean, look, the white Wii wheel accessory was such a large part of the identity to this game, alongside the online multiplayer, and it's the pack-in for the Wii system that just includes a red Wii remote and nunchuck and no online capabilities. At least they scrubbed the Wii wheel out of the box art on the packaging, but not the Wi-Fi connection logo. Though, still, I feel like maybe New Super Mario Bros. Wii would have made more sense here. No online works well with the red aesthetic, plus the Wii Mini feels oddly retro with how it's designed, which fits New Super Mario Bros. Classic formula more than Mario Kart Wii. So much value here, though. It's hard to complain about this as the pack-in for the Wii Mini. I just think there are other games that would have fit this package a bit better. The PlayStation Vita's pack-in game is technically Little Deviants, as it was included in the first edition bundle, the launch version. Remember when Sony was dogging on Nintendo with the 3DS, spouting out no self-respecting adult would play that in public? They say as they pack in Little Deviants. This is just a minigame collection utilizing the features of the handheld, the touchscreen, the rear touchpad, gyroscope, camera. It's all here, but Little Deviants is only really meant to use these things and nothing else. Yeah, maybe one of the only Vita games to make active use of the back touchpad, and while it may have been intended to show how it can be used in future titles, I think they accidentally showed how absolutely fucking dreadful it is to use it. Why would I ever want to do this? There's no staying power with any of these mini games. They're endurance rounds. They last for 30 seconds and then reset for round 2, then a round 3, so on and so on. And they rarely ever use the tech in cool or interesting ways. They just use it. There's no point to this. Just because you make a game that uses the Vita's camera in a few minigames, it doesn't mean I immediately think, oh wow, now this thing is all coming together. It's not bad. It's just one of the most disposable and forgettable video game experiences. And that is not what you want for a pack-in game. It feels like it goes against everything Sony was pushing the Vita to be. They wanted it to look like a PlayStation 3 on the go, so why make this game the pack-in? It makes the Vita look like a joke. Where's Has-Been Heroes when you need it? There's an art to the pack-in game, and hopefully you were able to see that through all the examples given. It has to be a great game in its own right, while also being a console showcase. And I gotta be honest, guys, I don't think Little Deviants is great at either. Hey all, Scott here. I only buy my games from 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. If there's anything that goes on in those 2 minutes, well, I have no fucking clue what it could be. How do you prove you love video games? With a lawn chair and an open schedule. The launch of a hotly anticipated game is a magical thing. There's really nothing else like it. Just tapping your foot while counting down the days until release, checking out any and all footage in existence, reading all the articles, and then the day before launch. That is what we call the 10th level of hell. Like, just give me the damn game. But nope, instead we have to wait all the way until the clock strikes midnight, and then we can have no sex. The first game I ever got on release day was none other than Super Mario 3D World back in 2013, cause I'm like, what, 12? I don't know, I just never felt the need to buy a game the moment it was available to the masses before that fateful day on November 22nd, and even then, the way I bought the game was through one of the lamest methods possible. Ordering the game online, yeah sure, if you spring for some good quick shipping, you'll get it the day of release, but normally in my experiences, the package gets dropped off at like 4 p.m. That's half the day wasted where I wasn't playing the game. What was I supposed to be doing when the clock struck midnight and the release day came? Of course, now we have the luxury of pre-purchasing digital games. If you want the game the second the release day approaches, you'll probably want to pick the game up digitally because it'll unlock when the game's available. Except when I bought Smash Bros. Ultimate digitally, for some reason it just refused to open until like 12:15. But that feeling of finally getting to play a game after it unlocks on your console, it does nothing for me. I need a much more interesting way to buy my game the second it comes out, and there's definitely a way to do that. What do you think this is? Waiting for an excruciating amount of time and possibly some of the worst conditions imaginable, all for something you have no idea if it's worth it or not. A pregnancy! The midnight launch event. Yes, this is something every self-respecting video game fan has to do at some point. The human race has done some crazy things, man. This guy stepped foot on the moon and this guy stood in line for the Kinect. Now what's the point of camping out for a midnight release? There is none. Well, in a world with digital games that unlock at midnight and a November in Ohio that has this much snow, waiting in line at a store late at night isn't the most appealing. The ones I have vivid memories of other people having vivid memories of, were definitely the Wii and PlayStation 3 launches. This was back when it wasn't as easy to just pre-order a console online. You truly did have to arrive at a store hours in advance and loiter. See, I think that's why the launch titles available for a console haven't been as great in recent years, because back then, being there for the midnight release was almost mandatory if you wanted to have the system at launch. So they better have some killer games to go alongside them to make it worth it. Now, just buy it on Amazon. Here's Killzone Shadowfall, you fucking idiot. But with the Wii, man, that had to launch with Wii Sports and Excite Truck and Twilight Princess. Could you imagine waiting outside that long for something not Barnyard? Now, midnight releases are normally reserved for the big boy games. Games that would draw a big crowd. Games that you could put on your resume for waiting for. So Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty midnight launches. Actually, this is a doctored photo. This is from the midnight after Modern Warfare 3's launch. I've never intentionally dabbled in midnight releases for games before. I usually just go to the store after waking up in the morning, which is weird because I do midnight releases for pretty much everything else in my life. Well, the night is young. It's 2019. There's gotta be some games coming out this year. The problem is, it's 2019. Alright, so tonight, Pokemon Sword and Shield and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order release. Now, I could wait for another midnight release to go to this year. Tonight it is. Now, if I was a Star Wars fan, I could imagine how that midnight release would go. Whoa. It's obvious the game that people are going to be lining up for at midnight is Pokemon. Maybe. It's hard to find out which stores are doing midnight releases and which aren't. A lot of them don't make it blatantly obvious they're doing it. GameStop is probably the surest bet for a midnight launch. I mean, it's GameStop, what else are they doing? But apparently some Best Buys are opening up at midnight to sell the game early. That's fucking great, I needed some ink anyways. Now, these stores are doing midnight releases after closing at 9 p.m. I am sorry, Best Buy and GameStop employees. There is always Walmart, which is generally open 24/7, which means the midnight release there consists of me pretending to try on shoes and then booking it to the game section at midnight. But of course, there are the specialty shops. The Nintendo NY store, you bet they're doing a midnight release for Pokemon. Now, Star Wars, that's tricky. I could not find a single store doing a midnight launch for Jedi Fallen Order, and I don't want to miss out on experiencing the digital midnight launch just to experience the physical one. So here we go, I will pre-order the digital version. This is the greatest fucking pleasure. Well, it seems that Best Buy is doing a midnight launch for Pokemon, so it looks like I'll be showing up to that, but Walmart should have the game at midnight as well, and then who knows, maybe GameStop will be doing a midnight release as well. Alright, well I just got off of the phone with GameStop. They will be doing a midnight release for Pokemon, but they will be doing an early 9 p.m. release for Star Wars. This wasn't fun. Sure, I have the game before midnight, but that's cheating! I want to dig my hands in deep here, I want to get dirty with a true midnight launch! So we're gonna have to buy Pokemon, but first, we have to prepare. A midnight release in November is something nightmares are made of, which is why it's time to raid the camping supply section at Walmart. You've no doubt seen the type of people who will camp out just for a console launch, a video game release, and Jesus, how about Black Friday every single year? It's something that really makes you ask Nintendo, I'm getting hypothermia, can you just release the Wii U now? No. Alright, we got a launch here for eating food rations in, we got a sleeping bag to store food rations in, we have food rations for eating food rations. If I run out of food rations, I have fishing maps just in case, you know? If I got a fish, I got a fish. I have an emergency snake bite kit. It's a Pokemon launch. Water pouch, I am strictly anti-dehydration. Got bug spray. It's gonna be outside. Camouflage so I can sneak in front of the line without anybody noticing. I was gonna buy snow pants, but I decided to only buy things I would realistically use. Some people camp out for days ahead of time just to be the first in line, and I've always dreamed of being one of those people. What the fuck is this? Well, in that case, I gotta get rolling. So here we are at Best Buy for the launch of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Where's my bug spray? We're back at Best Buy with bug spray in tow and no camouflage hat. F***. 1 hour from launch and we have everything. I forgot the snake bite kit. I hope the bug spray repels the snakes. After experiencing a true midnight launch for the first time, I've got to admit, this blows. Most of my food rations require a heat source. I thought I could just eat beef stew and run. In November in Ohio, huh? Everything's frozen. My legs, my ears, my aspirations. I can't even fish. Well, we're leaving Best Buy for now. We got 30 minutes until midnight. We're gonna check out how GameStop's doing. Don't worry, I saved my spot with my hat. A camo hat on a lawn chair is a hard sign to stay away. So we're back at the GameStop I bought my copy of Jedi Fallen Order at, and this is a much bigger party. Look at this, they got a nice sign and people are lining up for pre-orders. I better get back to Best Buy though. What the hell? I thought the hat was guarding everything. Oh, fuck. It was camo, nobody could see it, that's right. GameStop may have had a bigger turnout, but Best Buy's where the true midnight launch experience is at. Oh, it's midnight. Yeah, this one wasn't doing the launch. Okay, back to GameStop, where I was supposed to pre-order the game before waiting in line. I bought a balance board instead. I bought it at Walmart at 1:03 a.m. Here's my mugshot to prove it. Alright, and coming back, I can now experience the midnight launch of the digital versions of these games at 1:30 a.m. This is a bad night to wear flip-flops. Wait, I don't even like Pokemon. And that's what you call wasting $240 in 4 hours on 2 games I didn't really care about. However, I think I get it now. The midnight launch isn't necessarily about getting the game as quickly as possible. It's about the experience, being there with others, waiting for the game to come out. They're just as excited as you are, and having that sense of community means a lot. But if you decide to rough it out for days on end, it makes it more of an adventure. It gives you more of a story to tell. I will never do this ever again, but rushing home to finally pop in the game and play it for hours on end until the break of dawn, that's an experience you can't get often, and when it happens, you may be sleep deprived, but it's the memorable kind of sleep deprivation. But easily, my biggest takeaway is, this beef's doing that bad. Hey y'all, Scott here. Big day if you don't have much going on. Microsoft and Sony have decided, out of the kindness of their hearts, they are releasing video game consoles. You heard it here third. Video game consoles, that's video game consoles with a G in there somewhere, are launching to success, is what I'd say if you could actually buy them. Let's go to our Scott on the field. Scott? Scott, it's launch day of the brand new consoles, or as some video game fans have coined it, today. It's a big deal, taking into consideration all the video game console players out there. Roughly 3% of the population cares. Many fans have expressed disdain in the limited supply of consoles. You can barely find any in store. Well, Scott, that's pretty crazy. Did you nab any of the consoles? No. Okay. Also, there's a tornado warning tonight. More on that tomorrow. Well, I did go to Best Buy, and they did have some of the new Xboxes left over, and the names of these are getting so bad. I swear they named the last one this. For video game fans around the world, nothing's more exciting than the launch of a new console, ushering in a whole new generation of experiences. You have a completely new thing to put games in now. New game cases, controllers, menus, new entries in beloved franchises, new franchises entirely. See, we've been trained to expect these things when a system launches. It's the feeling of a new era dawning upon us that gets everybody going. And the launch, whether good or bad, is just a preview as to what's to come over the span of the console's life. That new generation smell is what makes console launches so great. The launch itself? It could be better. Console launches almost never go smoothly. There are almost always reports of faulty units, which are usually drastically overblown. Overheating consoles? Yeah, never happened to me, never will. Alright, but you have a bunch of new products being produced for the first time ever. Some problems are going to arise. And the people buying consoles at launch are hard to please while simultaneously loving anything in a box. There's something about game console launches that make people think this is a worthy event to get your picture taken. Here's me buying the Nintendo Switch. Now, where's a picture of me and my dad? These consoles mean a lot to people. Like, this is going to be the gateway to some of the most engaging entertainment you'll experience for the next 5 years or so. These products have personalities and true differences in comparison to the competition, which brings passion to the purchase. It's a big deal when you finally get a new PlayStation or a new Xbox, because it's not just you buying a new system to replace the last one. This is you stepping into a whole new world. You don't see people posing with Rokus on launch day. People like having the badge of honor of being there from the very start, like they have what it takes to be a real fan. I called in sick at my uncle's funeral for this. It's almost a form of bragging to be there at the very start of a console's life. Oh, you bought a PS4 Pro in 2016? Why spend 8 hours in the cold, lost my dog, missed work, and got syphilis just to buy a PS4 at launch in 2013, and I spent the next 3 years owning a console worse than the one you bought and paying full price for games you got for $5 in the clearance bin. And I'm better than you for it. Console launches are a magical moment that most take part in due to a lack of patience or to get a leg up on everybody else. Wow, this guy bought a Wii U at launch? Move over, Jesus. But it's mostly about the energy. When a new system launches, nothing else matters. That day is all about that console. I remember when the Nintendo Switch launched. Look at me. Brown hair and glasses. I was just a kid. March 3rd, 2017. I waited outside a GameStop in the cold, patiently waiting, and when that clock struck midnight, I really lucked out. Weird civil rights rally. I may have been at the wrong place at the right time, but that meant I got a Nintendo Switch at launch. I blacked out after that, awoke in the woods, and ran back when I realized I had no sex waiting for me at home. I got the gray model. Of course, when unboxing a console for the first time at launch, you say one of two things. It's way smaller than I thought it would be. I do quite value a premium unboxing experience, where the packaging feels made specifically for the product. It's like Nintendo is proudly presenting a squirrel they killed in my backyard. I like the unboxing experience with this console. It felt like Nintendo gave a shit. See, look at this cardboard. That's nice cardboard. When vanilla flavored cardboard is used, it feels like I'm unboxing power tools. But then it's time for the setup, getting to know your new console, experiencing the new sound effects and user interface. I can't wait, this is gonna be amazing. Boom, yes, I spent $300 to have my TV display this image. If only my Switch was defective. Now it's a console launch. You call off work, skip school, just have a day between you and the system of your dreams. And a console launch isn't complete without video games to play, and the Nintendo Switch had game. Let's see, I picked up The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch, god damn it. 1-2 Switch was the other big launch title from Nintendo, and I grabbed Super Bomberman R with some downloadable games, Snipper Clips, Fast RMX, and Shovel Knight. I had 2/3 of all Switch games at launch. It surely wasn't a ton of games, but they definitely went for quality over quantity here. I think all games held some value. Super Bomberman R was a little stinky, like it was Bomberman, which was good, but it lacked a lot of polish. 1-2 Switch was a fever dream everybody forgot even happened, but at the very least it was a showcase for what the new controllers could do. Yes, a tech demo. You always want something to prove the worth of the useless bullshit thrown into your console at launch, but 1-2 Switch was $50 sold separately. I just like spending $50 to justify spending $300. But none of the games here were bad. Nintendo was laser focused on making sure the Nintendo Switch had good games available, not a lot of games. What a fucked up world 2017 was. How dare they? Obviously, Breath of the Wild was the key to the launch here, and that shut everybody up for a good few months. That launch window was spent playing hours of Breath of the Wild, trying Bomberman and 1-2 Switch for a few minutes, going back to playing hours of Breath of the Wild. Those launch moments with any console feel so much more intimate. Like, this is your console, not the world's. You're one of the select few to own it at the moment. There aren't a ton of games, so you have this great understanding of the library. It's a weirdly fun feeling, even though there may not be a ton to do with the system at the moment. Slim pickings for games at the time, but they launched with the only game that really mattered here. Not a perfect launch, but I had a good time with it. It was cool to keep swapping between the console and the TV and taking it out and going, oh, I can play here and here and here. The game boxes were way smaller than I thought they would be. People had issues putting on the Joy-Con straps. If you line them up incorrectly, you have something to complain about online. Of course, there was also the great Nintendo Switch cartridge tasting phenomenon. Somebody discovered that each of these game cards had an incredibly better taste to them. Well, that's one point against the Switch. The PS4 was great with this stuff. It's fine. I don't know how this even became a thing people started doing. Like, yeah, it tastes bad. A bitter coating is here to probably prevent people from putting them in their mouths and swallowing. But is there any standard to how a cartridge should taste? Oh, the DS cards. See, those taste okay. See, nothing else beats an experience like that, one where nothing else in the world matters. All that matters is that there's a new video game device coming out that day. Of course, the Nintendo Switch is the only console I fully bought at launch. I did show up for the Xbox One X.
I made it, and 3 hours left to spare.
At the wrong store. Most of the time you have to pre-order the console to get it at launch, and I'm just not willing to make that commitment for something not launching with 1-2 Switch. But it makes me think, what would it be like if I bought some consoles at launch? Where would I be today if I bought a PlayStation Vita day one? The PS Vita launched on February 22nd, 2012. Kidding. The handheld released 1 week early with the first edition bundle, and then it officially launched on the 22nd. The first edition bundle was 3G enabled, came with a carrying case, memory card, the game Little Deviant, so if you wanted to get your hands on the Vita first and have the rest of the games come out a week later, here you go. Woo! What a way to make your launch just the most damn thing I've ever seen. What does this mean? Like some Vita games came out a week earlier alongside the first edition bundle, but the system officially launched on the 22nd? No, it didn't. It came out on the 15th. How is that not the official launch? That just ruins a lot of the excitement. Just blow it all out on the same day. Man, I totally bought the Vita at launch. I swear. I waited up there at midnight, picked up the first edition bundle, but do you ever have that fear? You just got this expensive thing you really wanted, and on the way from the store to the parking lot, you're worried that somebody's gonna steal it from you or you're gonna drop the box and it's gonna break. That happened to me. Hundreds of dollars wasted, worst launch ever. But what about the PlayStation 4? I didn't buy this one at launch. I waited until 2015 to buy this one. There was a deal where you'd get a download code for The Last of Us Remastered, and I spent the entire day downloading the game. But then, a week later, I decided to buy my very first official PS4 game. It was Grand Theft Auto 5, which I already owned for the Xbox 360. I spent my gas money on that. The Wii U. Imagine if I bought that on day one. In 2012, I would have pre-ordered the white one, and they would say, oh, that's got such a nice guy for buying a Wii U. Here's one on the house. Imagine if I got a 3DS at launch, an Xbox One, an Atari 7800. Some launches are 100% better than others. I mean, what are you really playing during the launch of the PlayStation 4? Killzone Shadowfall? Because you really wanted to play Killzone Shadowfall? I bought the Nintendo 3DS the day it got a price cut, a few months after its initial launch. Look at this original box. Why show the 3DS closed like this? Is that really the most iconic 3DS image they could have used? Why not show it open? Show the screen as 3D. Instead, that's all in the back. They're acting like the 3DS is like a really nice fork. A new dimension in entertainment. Just say it can play Rayman 3D. The Wii U at launch? Oh man, we got the deluxe digital promotion on the deluxe model. That's begging to get the question. What's that? You would get Nintendo eShop credit the more you'd buy digital games. It was great. Not a fan of multiple SKUs at launch though. Like, look at the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. I saw the Digital Edition on sale and thought, well, I can't find the regular one, so maybe. No, just wait to get the version you want. The same thing with the Wii U. I'm sure many wanted the deluxe set, but could only find the basic set at launch. Well, they might as well get the basic set. Who knows how hard the deluxe set's gonna be to find. Yeah, it's a mass-produced video game console. You gotta get the one you don't want because who knows how many they'll mass produce. The people buying consoles at launch are the hardcore fans who have hundreds to blow at that very moment. Which hardcore fans are gonna say, I want the shitty one. Introduce the more casual SKUs later down the line. It just annoys me at launch because I want a specific one, but can never only find the lame one. The Wii U was so damn slow at launch. Like everything took forever to load, and plus half of the features of the system weren't included out the box. You had to perform a day one update. Now, that's a standard these days. We're all used to that. But for Nintendo fans in 2012, I was expecting to see the rapture before a Nintendo system needing a day one update. At least you had such launch titles as Epic Mickey 2, Your Shape Fitness, Funky Barn. You know, the only one I don't own is Funky Barn. Now, how do I know what it was like to experience the Wii U launch without buying a Wii U at launch? Well, I watched from afar. It's fun to take in all the reviews, impressions, footage from game console launches, even if you're not too interested in owning the thing at the moment. A console launch, regardless of if you bought the console or not, is like Christmas morning. Not only because most take place around the holiday season, but because it's this huge barrage of new things to experience. How does that new controller stack up? Where's the instructions? What do the Wii U discs feel like? Oddly soft. But that's modern console launches. What about the stuff from a few more years back? Oh god, it seemed so scary to wait out for the PlayStation 3 and Wii. There was this level of madness for those two consoles that I'm not sure will ever be replicated. People were legitimately camping out with me doing the unthinkable. Buying multiple to sell for a profit on eBay. Ladies and gentlemen, we found the 8th sin. And then going back even further to older console launches, in the 90s, some of these consoles, it wasn't much of a countdown. Kids would just walk into the store and if they saw the Super Nintendo, well, it's out. As time has moved on, the console launch has become one of the biggest moments of any generation, as it's usually the first moment of any generation. And then right when the new console launches, does anybody look at the previous generation with disgust? Like, I don't want to play that. It's too new to be nostalgic or retro or novel, but it's too old to be legitimately exciting or fun to think about playing. Sure, the games at launch may not be the greatest. You have the rare defects that come with the first run of systems, and most of your day is probably going to be filled with the pure excitement that comes from playing with this new toy for the first time. It can't be matched. Opening up that box and seeing the future. I almost feel like I need to unbox these consoles in a certain way. Like, oh, I gotta save the system for last. I gotta check out the controller first. I have to keep all the bubble wrap and plastic in the correct pockets. What if I want to play dress up and put the console back in the box just for fun? This is what makes video games as a medium so much fun. Not only is it fun to play the games, but everything around them is such a blast to do. And that all comes together when a new system comes out. So why do I not give a shit about the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X? Because I couldn't pre-order them! I wanted them, honest to God, but I was busy thinking about what it would be like to own them. Damn it! Hey y'all, Scott here. Why didn't you tell me about pencils? This is great. Consider me a newborn fan. I'm sold. I don't even have to think about the next pencil I buy because I already pre-bought all of them. I should have waited for reviews. New product? Oh, don't mind if I do. If it comes from a company, I love it. You don't need to wait for first impressions or reviews. You can just order something the moment it's announced. It's one of our 2 rights. Now, does that mean you'll get it the day it releases? You'd think so. Pre-orders, the act of pre-ordering. You'd mostly do this to ensure you get this product the moment it comes out, or at the very least, a copy is reserved for you. Pre-ordering something doesn't always mean you'll get it on launch day. Sometimes shipment delays happen. Rather, it ensures you will in fact get it at some point in your life. Pre-ordering is more for the consumer that just can't wait to buy a product, but they can wait to use it. And in the video game industry, pre-orders are a way of life. This is something that's so frequently done with games. Every single one is up for pre-order, and so many people feel the need to hit that button. Other entertainment fields don't feel nearly as inclined to do this. I mean, you can pre-order a digital movie, but are you really human if you do that? With games, pre-orders are constantly pushed, more so than anything else. Oh, if you're interested in this game, you should pre-order it. If you do, you'll get to add something to a landfill. Listen, I rarely pre-order games. I personally feel like it overcomplicates things rather than simplifies them. Most video games are mass-produced. You're not gonna have a hard time finding new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe on launch day, so if you pre-ordered it, get over there. If that game wasn't available at Best Buy at launch, the simulation's crumbling. Plus, with pretty much every major game being released day of digitally, sometimes even before the physical release, there's no worries about stock problems. If you really wanted to play a game at launch and there are no more copies available, you have options. I've just had more problems with pre-orders than I haven't. It all started with my first pre-order ever, Wii Sports Resort, because I couldn't wait to play Wii Sports Bowling on a new disc. So I was at a GameStop and decided I have $20 and can put this towards my own copy of Wii Sports Resort. That's coming out soon. They'll reserve one just for me, and I'll only have to spend $30 more when the game releases. After the launch date passed, the next time I went to a GameStop, I asked if I could pick up my copy of Wii Sports Resort. They said no, because it was at a different GameStop. I don't think it was too far-fetched to believe these stores could communicate with each other. One pre-order at one GameStop was good at another. So I could have just went to the other GameStop to pick up my pre-order. Now I wanted the game really bad, so I spent all my money on it at the GameStop I was at. And thus I had to then figure out how to cancel my pre-order at the GameStop I pre-ordered at. Hey, don't blame me, I was young and dumb, it was 2018. You know, I should have just paid for the pre-order in full after buying the game at the other GameStop, so then I wouldn't have been embarrassed in the slightest. I wouldn't have had to walk away from the one without a game and wouldn't have had to cancel my pre-order at the other. I know what you're saying, no man should own that many copies of Wii Sports Resort.
So 2?
Ever since that day, pre-orders have left a bad taste in my mouth. It's like buying something with extra steps. Like I went to Best Buy to buy a laptop. They didn't have the specific one I wanted, but said a nearby store had it in stock. So they said I could purchase the laptop at this Best Buy, then show up to the other Best Buy, tell them what I did, show them my information, and pick it up. No, that's just asking for trouble. Like I could do that. Or I could just show up to the other Best Buy and tell them I want that specific laptop and pay for it all right there. They would need to scour their records, find out, oh god, did he buy this at a different store? I don't want to keep my receipts, payment records, and birth certificate around just to pick up Go Vacation on launch day when I can walk into the store and find 50 copies on the shelf. Plus, who wants to tell a cashier, hi, I pre-ordered Go Vacation? Wow, you really care, don't you? Okay, but what about online pre-orders? Pre-order the game on Amazon, you'll get it delivered to you day of.
Sure, let's go with that.
Don't you want the game the minute it's available? That's why you pre-ordered it? Well, pre-ordering online, you'll get it the day it releases, but UPS usually gets to your house around 4 p.m. if they're quick about it. And then sometimes your order gets delayed a day or 2 or 5, and your order isn't even a game that's a limited edition or anything. How did my copy of Animal Crossing come late? You can build a country out of copies available. But it's all about the worry in your heart. What if you show up to the store and there's no more copies left? You know what the last game I experienced that with? Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz HD. Hey, do you have any copies left? If you didn't pre-order, sorry, no. Really? To be fair, I mean, I don't really like walking in a store to pre-order something. It just feels weird to go all the way there for something you can't tangibly leave with.
What did I accomplish today?
I only pre-order things when it's almost absolutely necessary, when there's actual reason to believe it won't be in stock at launch if you don't pre-order. I've probably pre-ordered more digital titles because you know what happens at midnight when you pre-order games? You can play them. I'd rather wait till 4. Limited editions, brand new game consoles, these make sense to pre-order. At launch, they're first come, first serve. So why did I pre-order Assassin's Creed 4?
I needed a new football.
The pre-order bonus. What better way to get you to spend $60 early than to promise something worth $5? Oh man, if I spend my money now, I'll get bullshit and dog shit. Yeah, companies like their pre-orders because they give a good idea as to how many people are actually interested in the game. Plus, if they follow through with the order, that's paying full price for a game at launch opposed to waiting for a price drop later down the line. But how do you get people to actually pre-order?
I got some socks in the car.
Let me go through everything I remember pre-ordering and what I got for doing so. Firstly, of course, there was Wii Sports Resort. What did I get for pre-ordering that? Dignity. Next up, what, like some Amazon purchases? Nothing with these. I tried to pre-order Smash Brothers for Wii U at GameStop, the big collector's box with the GameCube controller and adapter, and they said we don't have that version, but we do have pre-orders for the regular game and a third-party GameCube looking controller that only those without hands would use. Yeah, I passed and pre-ordered on Amazon. Guess when I got it?
After the shipping delay, right now.
I did finally fulfill 2014 Scott's wishes and found a new copy of the Smash Wii U collector's box. Finally. I really wanted to stick it to that GameStop that said, ooh, sorry, no more pre-orders for that. Though, if you want, we have plenty of Little Big Planet 3 pre-orders left.
Okay.
Alright, how about this? Splatoon for Wii U launched in May of 2015. I pre-ordered at GameStop because you got a DLC code for Inkling costumes for the Mii Fighters and Smash Brothers for Wii U when picking the game up. That was such a fun incentive. I had to do it! Did I use the costumes? What do I look like? Somebody who does that? Come on, these costumes were valued at 75 cents. I could have passed this deal up. Now, if you pre-ordered Splatoon at Target, you got a water gun. Good thing you didn't have to specifically pre-order to buy them. They were selling them separately at the store as well. Thank God I was out of cups. Honestly, this thing was pretty cheap, but for $5 extra at Target or just straight up given away for free with Splatoon, that's kinda cool. It does look like the splatter shot from the game with some very cheap stickers that are bound to wear off since there's gonna be water all over this thing. But this wasn't the only pre-order bonus Target did with Wii U games in 2015. No, we got the Super Mario Maker Puzzle Cube, also available separately for roughly $5. How did they f up a Rubik's Cube? This is using like the cheapest plastic imaginable. Each turn feels like I'm grinding against the rest of the plastic. I can commend them for doing something cute like this, but I'm sure the people in charge said, we have just enough funds to kinda do a Rubik's Cube. If you can only kinda do a Rubik's Cube, you probably just shouldn't do a Rubik's Cube. Now, I personally pre-ordered my copy of Mario Maker over at GameStop because they were giving out this poster celebrating the 30th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. I don't know, I don't really put up posters outside of a few key examples, but this one just looked neat, so I thought, I'll pre-order to get that. How about with Twilight Princess HD? At GameStop, I got the soundtrack on CD. Or some of it, sound selection, so not everything. It's also in this dinky-ass cardboard case, so not the full soundtrack, and the case isn't anything to write home about. But to be fair, this is the best pre-order bonus I've gotten so far, and in terms of excitement, I'm brimming. Of course, I pre-ordered the Nintendo Switch when that launched, but I had to wait about a month and a half later to get some plastic bullshit with a pre-order because at Target they did the damn Rubik's Cube again. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Rubik's Cube. They also did some air fresheners. To be honest, I don't think these Target trinkets count as pre-order bonuses, more like purchase bonuses, since you could just buy them at Target for super cheap around the game's launch. But hey, they stink, so that ought to count for something. Ever since, I've been fairly selective with my pre-orders. I got Mario Odyssey at Best Buy, where I got this poster and a collectible coin, the Smash Ultimate Controller Bundle, which also came with a collectible coin. Man, I mean, these are quality little trinkets, but at least with the Rubik's Cubes, I got a good few years out of looking at those complaining. These, there's just not much to them. They're nice little coins. So cool, but like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do with these. I haven't personally truly experienced a crazy good pre-order bonus. I think the one everybody points to that was undoubtedly the best of all time was the Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker's pre-order bonus. You got Ocarina of Time plus the all-new Master Quest version of the game as a GameCube disc. So you pretty much got an extra game for free by pre-ordering this game. Pretty sweet deal. Pre-order copies of Mario Kart Double Dash contain the fabled bonus disc featuring game demos. They were seriously putting work into their pre-order bonuses back then. So, how did pre-order bonuses look a decade later? A free football for pre-ordering Assassin's Creed 4 at Best Buy. Well, I was gonna buy a football at Best Buy anyways. I needed a new Assassin's Creed 4. This is perfect timing. A flashlight for pre-ordering Shadow of the Tomb Raider at GameStop. Yes, the inside of the game case is so dark I can't find the game without it. A banana-shaped Wii Remote holder for pre-ordering Donkey Kong Country Returns at GameStop. This Wii Remote is really pissing me off. It's not in something else. Good thing I pre-ordered. 25 extra lives for pre-ordering Sonic Lost World from Amazon. Yeah, that's what got me to pre-order. More lives. Free condoms with infamous Second Son at GameStop Italy. They'll work or your money back. You got exclusive special moves to perform in Remember Me based on Street Fighter by pre-ordering from Amazon, Best Buy, or Steam. Why lock stuff like that behind pre-orders? Why lock cool gameplay incentives? Well, it's easier than supplying quality merchandise. Gears of War 2's pre-order bonus was an RC car tank. For free. You know, Target couldn't even get a Rubik's Cube right. Yeah, think if they tried to give you an RC car instead. That's why we got Thumb War merch for Super Street Fighter 4. Lots of these bonuses feel like they're trying to offload excess stuff they have in a warehouse off to consumers. You ever try to leave a GameStop without a pre-order bonus? I have yet to hear somebody who has. I blacked out and woke up owning a keychain. Deus Ex Mankind Divided decided to revolutionize the pre-order experience by offering tiers of pre-orders. You could pick this tier, but you'd have to choose which pre-order bonus you'd want, or you could pick this higher one, but you'd have to choose which bonus you'd want, or you could pay a huge premium to play the game early. But the only way higher tiers would be unlocked was if they got enough pre-order sales. So you had to bug people to pre-order a game, so you had the potential to pay more for your pre-order to potentially get one pre-order bonus or another, but not both. I'll just take the fucking football. This plan was canceled after negative feedback. I mean, it's just straight up confusing. I mean, sure, I think getting dinky little keychains is sort of lame as a pre-order bonus, but it's harmless. It just doesn't do much to incentivize me to actually pre-order. Rather, they are what the name implies, a bonus, not really an incentive. And sometimes these bonuses can be legitimately cool. Art pieces, CDs, posters, of course, they rarely can get amazing, like with the Master Quest, but I doubt we'll ever see a pre-order bonus that great ever again. But if anything, some of these modern pre-order bonuses really hit home what I was trying to convey a bit ago. Don't pre-order shit. Like, why? The only reason to actually pre-order something is if you get a benefit from it. Like, it'll be scarce and you want to make sure you get it. But pre-ordering Watch Dogs? Why? If it's for a pre-order bonus, I guarantee you that pre-order bonus will be available on eBay in moments for pennies. If everybody gets it for free with a pre-order, then there's absolutely no reason to spend full price on the game that you wouldn't normally spend full price on just to get the pre-order bonus that's worth mere dollars. And then there's the fact that with most games, you don't need to pre-order. They'll be readily available at launch. Pre-ordering the game just adds so many unnecessary steps. You have to show up to GameStop, pre-buy the game, then go away, then come back on launch day, tell them, hey, I pre-ordered the game, show all your info, then pick up the game, compared to just showing up to GameStop on launch day and buying the game. But I have time to kill, so I'm going to pre-order a pre-order of a game. That's where I get to stand in line to find out where I'll stand in line when it comes to pre-ordering the game, because I'll get this pre-order bonus of this exclusive poster. Hey y'all, Scott here, and don't mind me, I'm just making some adjustments to the calendar, or legally speaking, tampering with evidence. Ever since I missed out on buying Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes on launch day, I've made it a goal to make sure every day is launch day. Because we can't just let the day one buyers have all the fun, look at them out there. So, from here on out, whenever you decide to buy the game, you'll get the satisfaction of knowing you bought it on day one. Which stinks for me because I'm never gonna buy it. There's a certain level of pride that comes with being a gamer. I never said it was a high one. And many attribute their gaming accomplishments towards the real-life penis. You're not a true fan. You didn't beat Horizon Forbidden West on very hard. And easy, the week before the game released! So much of gaming discussion is based around, oh yeah, well this is why I'm a bigger fan. See, I'm better than you because I don't have anything else going on. So why not monetize and encourage that kind of behavior? I can get behind that. Let's go even further. If your aunt died last night, you get a green case. Day one editions, you know what that means. I'm a sucker. These are some of the more peculiar facets of modern gaming, with their entire purpose being for bragging rights. The first time I personally remember these coming to light was during the Xbox One's launch. How did Microsoft take attention away from the competition? By giving us shit box art. The Microsoft published titles, Dead Rising 3, Forza 5, and Rise Son of Rome, all received Day 1 2013 editions as a way to commemorate the console's launch. Foil silver backgrounds. Yeah, that's so much better than art. And to be fair, there was a part of me that wanted these editions of the games. I mean, there's a reason first print releases of products are often coveted as the most valuable, so to have the games denote that, not only with a banner, but special box art as well, it just makes these even more collectible feeling. Emphasis on feeling. Yeah, so your reward for waiting out in the November 2013 cold to buy your Xbox One is shittier box art and deprecating value. Well, these releases do come with bonus DLC items, and it does feel pretty cool to own these and say, I was there since the very start 2 weeks ago. But I think the bigger deal was the Day 1 edition Xbox One consoles. Right at launch, you could get this system with a special edition controller and an exclusive achievement on your Xbox Live profile. Wow, so this is what it must have been like to own an Xbox One at launch. I'm not gonna lie and act like this wasn't a smart move by Microsoft. I mean, if you're buying a console at launch, you already have control issues. Couple that with such minimal additions like 3 lines of text on a controller and a digital achievement that says, you f***ed up. I sure did. And you just ensured that at least one person who wasn't originally going to buy the system bought it because they didn't want to miss out on owning the limited Day 1 edition. Oh my god, it's so fucking cool, and by proxy, I'm so fucking cool. Microsoft would continue this Day 1 tradition, this time with simply games on their launch dates, incentivizing people to buy the games the first chance they get. These companies were already trying to find ways to avoid customers buying used games around this time, one scheme being to lock the online multiplayer behind a digital code. Buy the game brand new, enter the code in, and you're golden. Buy the game used, you run the risk of the code already being redeemed or just flat out not being in the box, and thus, if you want to play online, you have to pay an extra 5 or so bones for the privilege of using your product. Thankfully, this practice became less and less used as the years went on, so what replaced it? Just because it's not as bad doesn't mean it's not stupid. It's like pitting Satan against some worms. Like, yeah, I don't like either, but when it comes down to it, one is truly fucking despicable, and the other is just the Prince of Darkness. Day 1 editions are just kind of weird to me. They're everywhere, and most big name titles these days has something akin to it, and it's just a trend I find interesting. So, let's dissect the method to the madness and see if any of these Day 1 editions are worth being early to the party for. I'm a true fan. Before we dive into these, I have one major question. When does the term Day 1 edition or launch edition become obsolete? Spider-Man Miles Morales has been out for years at this point, and basically the only version I ever see for sale on PlayStation 5 is the launch edition. And the ultimate launch edition. Oh man, is my cock big or too big? Hell, a game like Shantae Half Genie Hero released on Nintendo Switch with a special Day 1 edition, a year after the Nintendo Switch version launched. Half a year after Day 1. So let's just say this title means the first print of the game, not necessarily specifically Day 1, though that would be something if this title actually meant something. I feel like it would instill a much greater connection between the customer and the game if this variant was truly only available on launch day. Instead, these copies flood stores for sometimes years. Now, obviously, printing a copy of the game that's only available on one day isn't practical, but hey, they call these launch editions for a reason. They want to dig their claws into your emotions. When you look at your copy of Ratchet & Clank and it says launch edition, they want you to say, I was there. That creates incentive for you to buy your next game at launch, and the next game, and the next game. This whole thing is just a mind game. Well, if we're being emotionally manipulated, might as well see what's in it for us.
I love you. You look less fat today.
Most launch editions come with a few bonus DLC items, nothing crazy. Costumes, cars, weapons, you name it. Anything that's cool but superfluous enough to be a giveaway incentive. Listen, they love us, but not enough to like us. It's always some of the most whatever DLC imaginable. Like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart's launch edition just gives you a weapon and armor set early. Like, you can still get them in the game through natural progression, but because you bought the game first, you don't have to work for them. I love this game so much, I'm willing to buy it at launch so then I can automatically get items so I don't have to play it as much. This is tough because I want to criticize this launch bonus for being stupid, but it's not locking content behind a paywall for anybody, which makes this very commendable. And stupid, it's fucking stupid. Hot Wheels Unleashed Day 1 Edition, because grandma had to wait. Oddworld Soulstorm Day 1 Edition on Xbox, and No More Heroes 3 Day 1 Edition on PlayStation. Once again, months after Day 1. Some of these do include more than just DLC though. Oddworld features a metal case on the Day 1 Edition for Xbox, which was the same metal case on the Day 1 Edition for PlayStation. Well, I did have to make sure. Now Dark Souls 3's Day 1 Edition acts more as a special edition than a traditional launch edition, coming with the full game soundtrack on CD, which, yes, this is something fitting for fans willing to buy the game day one. Though they also denote having an outer sleeve as a day one edition feature, be grateful. A digital strategy starter guide is also included, and exclusive to the Xbox One release is a full download code for the original Dark Souls. You'd think that would make this the definitive version to get. 19 sold? Very cool release here. If all launch editions were like this, I'd see absolutely nothing to complain about, but thankfully, we live in reality. The launch edition of Sonic Colors Ultimate. Now, why is this box so thick? Why do include the Baby Sonic keychain from the Sonic the Hedgehog live-action movie in 2020, of course?
You sure there isn't a Dark Souls 3 soundtrack in here?
What does this have to do with Sonic Colors? This belongs with the Sonic movies Blu-ray, not some completely unrelated remaster of a Wii game from 2010. This was obviously thrown in to get rid of excess stock from promotions for the film while trying to make the game more enticing on release day. It was a win-win for Sega, and a loss in terms of space on my shelf. This is one of the most obnoxiously large game boxes I own, considering what comes in it. Yes, a keychain? Error. Sega's been doing the whole bonus edition at launch stick for a while, and honestly speaking, I'm kind of over it. It's hard to complain because these games aren't any more expensive than if they didn't come with all this garbage, but I'm just tired of buying a Sega game at launch and then having to deal with where to put my new trinkets. Puyo Puyo Tetris similarly came with a keychain though. That at least was specifically for that game. Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania and Sonic Mania Plus received art books, which are absolutely beautiful and great inclusions, but they're just clumsily packed next to the outer sleeves. Makes it annoying to put on a shelf because every time you take the game out, you have to deal with the art book rattling around in there. This is even more irritating with the Nintendo Switch versions of these games. Since those game cases are much smaller, like putting this on my shelf with the rest of my Switch games with the outer sleeve looks dumb. Taking the outer sleeve off and putting that somewhere else looks dumb. You know what? Life looks fucking dumb. The Japanese release of Sonic Mania Plus is so much better considering all of this and then some, including the game's soundtrack on CD, are bundled in a box, making it so much easier to store. You don't have to worry about the art book getting ripped up from just laying here. Other launch editions do this, where they just include the bonuses just stuffed into the sleeve like this. It's just irritating to me. Like, you can't have designed these materials just be, like, that smaller. I just want this junk included in the game case itself, not like this. I have to deal with it every time I pull the game out this way. Which is why Sega should take notes from Sega. Valkyria Chronicles 4 Launch Edition comes with a controller skin. Easy addition, kinda cute bonus, doesn't add any girth to the package, perfect. And it's included right alongside your other launch bonus, the Japanese voices. Why is this a launch bonus? This is just something that should be in the game automatically. Imagine if they locked Spanish subtitles behind pre-orders. The Sonic Forces bonus edition should have given you the ability to use the left button on the menu. This one was very similar to Valkyria Chronicles, controller skin and DLC add-on, so the latter was relegated to just custom character costumes, and honestly, that's just what most launch editions offer. It's an easy and painless way to incentivize you to buy at launch, so these can often be in addition to various other SKUs of the product on day one. Persona 5 Royal had the regular edition, then the launch edition, which included a steelbook and a theme for your PS4.
I don't need a launch edition for that.
Then the Phantom Thieves edition, including everything from the launch edition plus more, and then the Resident Evil 3 edition. And that's not even scratching the surface of the digital version. You have the digital edition, digital deluxe edition, digital ultimate edition. The fact that so many modern games need to have articles and charts whipped up to explain the differences between each version is ridiculous. Especially when the launch edition is still being sold while the regular edition edition is then introduced. What am I supposed to make of this? Publishers have milked the edition game dry, and when day one editions were introduced, that was just the beginning. How can we go further?
What day is it?
Call of Duty Advanced Warfare had a special Day Zero edition, meaning if you bought this version, it would come out a day before the actual release date.
Well, then that isn't the actual release date.
It's like when the PlayStation Vita had a first edition bundle that released a week prior to the actual release date. I hate to break it to you, but I don't think that can be considered the actual release date anymore. Oh, and we can always circle back to Sonic Colors Ultimate. Early access by pre-ordering the Digital Deluxe Edition? Yeah, I got early access. 11 years ago!
Day one editions, launch editions. They're tactics by these companies to get you in at the very start. Pay full price, help them achieve record-breaking numbers in that quarter while having to deal with the growing pains of playing a game at launch with all the bugs and glitches that come with. Proceed to pay for all the DLC and expansions that come later down the line, all for the game to end up rotting in the bargain bin for $20 while a complete all-in-one edition releases with all the bugs and glitches fixed and all the paid DLC included for free. But damn it, it's worth it. I'm not saying these things are bad or anything. I just think it's interesting how common they've become and how little I think it all matters. The fact I can walk into Best Buy months and months and months after Horizon Forbidden West launched and still buy the launch edition, which the only difference between that and the standard edition is a little bit of text at the top and a free DLC costume, I feel like the purpose of a launch edition is kind of lost at that point. So, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna let some video game company push you around and tell you when to buy your games? Because where I'm from, every day is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes launch day. And I don't sleep because of it.